Hi and welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. So today's Thriver TV show is being done very late at night and I am literally exhausted because I'm moving house at the moment. I'm finishing off renovations. I'm running this amazing business as well as having a very active social life, and I am literally very fluey and exhausted. I was nearly going to do this episode in my dressing gown. That's how tired I am. And I thought, you know, because of last week and there were some comments about my boots, and I was very, very close to doing it and thinking, well, if you couldn't take me seriously in boots or a dressing gown or in any shape or form, well, then that's actually your problem and not my problem, because, you know, the wealth and the value is in the content and, you know, my soul, my heart and my delivery, not what I wear. Anyway, let's move on with the show. So this show is about the 3 methods of healing from narcissistic abuse. And the reason I wanted to do this show is because a lot of people contact, or they have contacted me over the years and they've said, Melanie, you believe in law of attraction. Well, then how can you talk about going back into the pain? Because law of attraction is not about going back into the pain. So that's why I wanted to do this Thriver episode, this Thriver TV episode, because I wanted to deeply share with you the 3 distinct models of healing for narcissistic abuse and the differences and why the Thriver model is nothing like the other 2 models. Okay, so when we're talking about law of attraction, absolutely I believe in law of attraction. And what I believe in it is that our emotional state is the generator of our life. So that's our belief systems, our subconscious programs, and what we're feeling in our body. So where I believe law of attraction falls down an awful lot is let's just think positive. Let's just think positive. Now, to become a different emotional set point to one that we were being that we weren't happy with, we have to change our emotional state, how we feel in our body. We have to go from feeling depressed and powerless and victimized and abused into feeling spacious and free and energized and powerful and confident and expansive and safe. In other words, we need to move from fear into love. Now, positive thinking, when we're deeply, deeply traumatized, can be a huge, huge leap. In fact, it can be an impossible leap. Just let me give you 2 different examples. So the first example about how positive thinking can be easy is about things in our life that we don't have trauma connected to emotionally. So for example, you know, we might think of a lovely girlfriend and we might think, gee, I'd love to catch up with Heidi. I'm thinking about her lately and I'd really, really love to hear from her or get in contact with her. And you might even visualize having a really lovely lunch with her, throw in some good emotional feelings with it so it feels like it's real. Let it go, and before you know it, Heidi's answering one of your comments on Facebook and she's suggesting that you get together. Now that's the easy side and the straightforward side of law of attraction. But let's just say you are going through the most horrible traumatic event of your life with a narcissist. You're being ripped to shreds by a narcissist. You're in so much trauma you can barely hold down a job. He or she is threatening you with losing the kids, that you won't get a cent and that you're going to get destroyed. And he's doing all of the actions that look like that. Now, are you just going to be able to think of rainbows, fluffy clouds, a beautiful new home, everything being sorted out and happy ever after? I don't think so. And this is the ridiculous thing about when law of attraction advocates stand up and they go, well, don't go to the past and don't go to the trauma and just think positive. How can we when we're in deep emotional trauma? And when we start understanding epigenetics and we start following and researching people like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton, who are renowned, globally known neuroscientists that are awarded at the highest level, they tell us that when we have belief systems that are very painful and very powerless, such as I'm abused, I'm a victim, I'm powerless in this situation, and we have high emotional trauma content in our body in regard to those belief systems, well, then they are incredibly powerful. And we're on a trajectory of those belief systems, regardless of what we're trying to think, because 95% of our body's being, our nerve ends, our neurowiring, our neuropathways is literally hijacked with this emotional trauma. We have 5% available to work with cognitively, which is like trying to stop a runaway train by standing in front of it like that. It's not, and this is why we all know what we should be thinking. We all know that it's not serving us to be thinking and feeling in ways that we do, but it doesn't matter how much we try to think to stop ourselves thinking like that. We can't. We keep defaulting back to it time and time again. And the reason is because the whole human system has been set up on an illusion. And the illusion is that we can actually control our powerful emotions without thinking. Now we can't, and the reason why we can't is because our subconscious programming, which is how we feel in our body, that is how we show up. That's how we feel. How we feel is how we think. This is how we generate our lives. And that's what belief systems do, especially with powerful emotional content attached to them. They will generate the validity of the belief with life and others to the letter. That's how our life is continually unfolding. So we've all thought that we can stop how we feel with our thinking, but hasn't narcissistic abuse showed us that we can't? We know what we should be thinking. We know, even if we're really versed on law of attraction, we know that, well, if I could just think positive and I could just hold those thoughts, well, then that could change my feelings. But yet we're really struggling to do that. And the reason is because the brain follows the body. And this is what neuroscience is showing us now, that what we feel in our body is how our brain is going to organize around that with its thoughts in accordance to the peptides, the chemicals that our body is generating and secreting, what our hypothalamus is granting to the cells in our body, how we feel in our body. Our thoughts can only ever be in the range of those feelings. So until we actually bypass our thoughts and get directly into changing the feelings in our body, we can't think different thoughts. So this is the huge problem with trying to think our way out of emotional trauma. It just doesn't work. So let's have a look at the three distinct ways, the paths of healing. So the first is talk therapy. The second is law of attraction, and the third is the Thriver model. So let's start with talk therapy, cognitive talk therapy, which is what all of us believe that we needed to do. We needed to talk it out. We needed to go over and over and over and over and over and over it again to desensitize ourselves of it and get it out of our system. However, neuroscience is now proving that this is a flawed model. And the reason it's a flawed model is because if we go over and over in our mind, then what we're doing is we're reactivating those neuro pathways of being victimized, traumatized, and powerless. We're activating all of those peptide chemicals again. We're coursing it through our system and giving it another dose. And we are literally re-traumatizing ourselves over and over and over again. So imagine if somebody shot you once and then you replayed being shot another 1,000 times. You have effectively shot yourself 1,000 times with the same bullet. the level of trauma is identical, because your inner being, your subconscious, knows no difference between an actual event, the fear of the event happening, or the replaying of the event. It is all the same peptide release coursing through your body. So what happens is people that are continually in talk therapy or in abuse forums, who are never getting a body shift, never getting a reprogramming directly in their subconscious, are stuck on the same trajectory of being a victim, being powerless and being abused, and they get worse and worse and worse, because those peptides that match those emotions, they starve our cells literally of oxygen and nutrients. We are not evolving, we are dissolving. We're dissolving. So I've met people 20, 30 years down the track who are worse. They're not better. Despite the therapy that they've had from narcissistic abuse, they are firmly hardwired into, I'm an abuse victim. And what has happened to them is the pain, because they're not evolving, because they're not up-leveling, because they're not coming home to their true self. And the further we are away from our true self, the more it hurts. And because they're continually in this chemical cocktail of these nasty, life-grabbing, life-destroying peptides, the pain gets worse and worse and worse. So generally what happens is these people are stuck in a program of psychology and medication, which is ineffectively doing nothing to get to original traumas, to up-level. It's not addressing it at causation level. It's merely trying an attempt to manage symptoms. And this is a highly codependent model which keeps the psychology and the pharmaceutical companies going, because you're never going to get better. You're never going to evolve beyond this and leave this behind. You're always going to need those commodities. So you stay sick, alive, and dependent. That's the codependent big pharma model that our world's modeled on. So the second model is law of attraction, and law of attraction really came about because law of attraction was saying, don't keep regurgitating and staying stuck in the past, create a different future. So the law of attraction model was very much about, let's ignore our inner wounding, let's not go to it, let's not touch it, let's just create a different trajectory that we can just get onto. Now, I have barely ever in the thousands of people I've worked with and I've come across in the years that I've been working with narcissistic abuse recovery, I can't even name one person I know that has used a pure law of attraction model and not gone to an up-level previous trauma who has got out of narcissistic abuse effectively. I know of people that haven't done the inner work, that just got on with their lives, blocked it out, blanked it out, got positive, and then what happens is their shadows continued to meet them. There are people within the community, and I was one of them as well, who thought I was fine. But there was still unresolved subconscious programming that was still going to generate that reality with all of life, that was still going to bring those wounds to meet so that the unconscious could become conscious, so that it could be up-leveled and healed. And this is what the law of attraction model for deep traumatic events is not looking at, and it needs to look at. We cannot park a Ferrari in a garage when there's a rusty old wreck in the way. You cannot put, as Debbie Ford said, you cannot put you can't put ice cream on top of crap and expect to have a nice meal. It just doesn't work that way. And what Debbie Ford also said in her beautiful shadow work is that if we don't deal with our shadows, they will deal with us. And this is what the angel in disguise situation in narcissistic abuse has been about all along. For our shadows, our deepest fears, our deepest insecurities to meet us via another person, so that the things that we had buried, we didn't like about ourselves, we didn't want to face, the disowned parts could actually meet us in such vivid, powerful technicolor that they fully had our attention, because life could not go on as normal anymore. So the law of attraction model, I've barely seen anybody get emotional relief out of that for deep narcissistic trauma, because it's just impossible. The trauma is too big to try to beat with our tiny, tiny cognitive mind, which operates 40 nerve ends per second, as opposed to our subconscious, which is operating 40 million nerve ends per second. It doesn't have the power to do it when we're activated in deep trauma. So that's the law of attraction model. So now we'll move on to the Thriver model. And the Thriver model means that we're not going to regurgitate the past by being stuck in the cognitive talk therapy model and go over and over without creating a body shift. And we're also not going to ignore the trauma in our bodies, as we did with the law of attraction model, and just try to shift forward with positive thinking. What we do in the Thriver model is we are deeply going inside to self-partner to meet those inner traumas in our body with love, with acceptance, with fascination, in order to be able to claim them, because you can't heal what you're not prepared to feel. This is what self-partnering is all about. We stop self-avoiding, which is what the whole human model is based on. Self-avoiding being, I'll get on Facebook, I'll go eat some pizza, I'll go have sex with somebody, I'll go take a drug, I'll go get drunk, I'll do whatever I have to do to run away from myself. And then we wonder why we're not getting people fully committing and devoting to us, because we're not committing and devoting to ourselves. So the Thriver model is about committing and devoting to ourselves. We go inwards to the screaming dragons inside us, which is our traumas, and we find out that they are broken little children that need our love and healing. They are the parts of ourselves that don't feel worthy, that don't feel lovable, that don't feel acceptable, that don't feel that we are a source of love, approval, security, or survival to ourselves. Those are all of the wounds that have been meeting us in the field via other people, because they've been disowned parts all of our life. And if we continue to ignore them, they continue to have a life of their own, and they will continue to play out in life, because we're not meant to have them. As a true self function, we are not meant to be wounded. We're not meant to be in fear. We're meant to be in love and inspiration and power, not powerlessness. So the Thriver model is all about that when we up level, we are midwifing our breakdowns, which is our traumas, into our breakthroughs. And what happens is when we find inner subconscious programs that were stuck deeply in survival and fear, and we unleash all of the energy that was trapped in those beliefs, when we unleash them, we open up to creativity and love and power. And I want you to feel that. I want you to feel what I'm saying. The truth is that we mine our greatest gold out of our deepest wounds, because when we're released from our wounds, that is when we have the power to create beyond what you could ever imagine. It gives you access to the field and life and yourself in ways that you just did not have access to before. So that's the Thriver model. So I hope that you law of attraction people out there can grasp what I'm saying. Yes, I love law of attraction, but I don't like how it leaves out the emotional component when or the up-leveling component, where it deeply needs to reprogram subconscious trauma. And if it does that, well then a law of attraction model is fantastic. If it ignores it, it's dangerous. So please also too, leave your comments and questions. You know, if you are a law of attraction advocate, ask further questions on this underneath this video. I'd be really happy to have that a deeper conversation with you about that. And you know, if this video really spoke to you, I'd love you to join me in my upcoming 3 Keys to Thriving After Narcissistic Abuse webinar, where you get to not just learn about the Thriver model, you get to deeply experience super tools that work on up-leveling your subconscious directly, which gives you immediate body shifts on any topic that you are targeting, so that you will immediately evolve into a higher state. Because once you clear that trauma out of your body and you know how to replace it, you create space to bring in your highest and best potential, which knows what to do, which knows how to be in the world in a way that you didn't have access to before. So you can do that and join me in creating the Thriver model for you by clicking on the link that appears on this video. So that's it from me until next week, and hopefully I'm not fluey and I'm not exhausted and I won't be tempted to get into my dressing gown again, and I won't quite be in my new place, but I'll nearly be in my new place. So keep smiling, keep healing, keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.